Ugh. So we all know how this is, I think, as actors, where we are falling in love with the craft and we're young actors and we're watching these like A-listers give all these interviews where they're talking about their process and it feels like so cool and artsy fartsy, and it's like we get so jazzed about that. We're like, that's the kind of artist I'm going to be. That's the kind of actor I'm going to be. And I think partially because I'm part of the home video generation and we had DVDs and videos and all these bonus features, and so I would watch this when I was a young actor and growing up and aspiring to be an actor in high school. And I think that's the kind of artist I want to be. I want to have a process like that and speak about a process that way. And I was so excited to engage with it in that way. And then in my 30s, when I really started booking a little bit more TV, I didn't quite have that full feeling of what I saw them talking about in interviews. And I realized like I'm so lucky to have worked as much as I've worked. And I feel very blessed to I go from audition to booking sometimes, and it's like, wow, I know that this is such a privileged position in a way to be able to book this role, but it doesn't feel like this incredibly full experience like I saw these actors talk about. When you're booking some of these TV shows now with digital and cross shooting, you might only be on set for 3 hours sometimes, and it's not a lot of time. And so I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm not there a lot, and maybe it's because it's the size of the role. But then I would have these experiences where I was like the lead of a short or something, and it was a little bit more of a struggle maybe to engage with the script, or I wasn't feeling that fullness, that sort of touchy-feely, ooh, it just lines up with me and I just love it, and we talked about this part of the process and I engaged with the director in this way, and it just feels so artsy when they talk about it, and I wasn't feeling that way. But then I would have auditions. It would be like I was only in the room for 2 minutes and I had a full meal. It felt so full. So I'm confused by these two things as I'm going through my acting life in my late 20s, early 30s, and I'm trying to figure out why can't it feel that way, that fullness? Okay, so then I thought, well, maybe there's a difference. Maybe there's a difference between the way I'm engaging with the art on a foundational level and the way that A-listers engage with the art. And this thought occurred to me a few weeks ago, and I've been noodling around with it and trying to figure out how to phrase it, because it feels like the only way to really phrase this is by analogy or metaphor. But I think the foundational difference between myself as a working actor and what we might consider A-listers, and I think a lot of actors and A-listers, the difference between those groups or categories of actor, if you want to call it that, I don't hear that being talked about a lot. And I think it is the difference between choosing and being chosen. So when you work on my level as an actor, you audition for anything you can get your hands on. You want to be in practice constantly, you love acting, and you just want to be engaged with it. And so you'll take what you can get. And that's not a comment on the art itself. If you're in a steakhouse and you will take what you can get, all the steaks are good. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, if you think of it like a hunger, and as a working actor, I don't know where the next bite of food is going to come from, I will take any sustenance offered to me. I don't want to communicate that there's a hierarchy of art, and I don't want to be saying industry art is better than indie art or whatever. I am not saying that at all. I'm just talking about the posture with which you engage in opportunity. So my hands are out all the time, and I am just trying to catch whatever falls into them, versus if you're picking, if you're you have the luxury, I suppose you could call it, of choice. So I kind of thought about this analogy. We'll see if it works. It's imagine you're in a wind tunnel, one of those old cash grab wind tunnels, and they're just piping dollar bills, there's money flying all around you. And you're trying to grab as much as you can get your hands on before it stops. You might be getting some ones, you might be getting some fives, some 20s, but you're just grabbing whatever you can. And some of it will feed you for longer than other pieces of cash. $20 is going to feed you longer than $5 will. And then imagine there's another scenario where you are in a beautiful room and there's a table in front of you, and on the table is just a bunch of valuable items. Let's say gold pendants. And there's an attendant there, and you can ask the attendant about the items in front of you. You can be how valuable is this? And who made that? And what was the intention, the artist's intention behind that design? And you get to choose 1 or 2 golden pendants per year. Those two illustrations kind of show how I'm thinking about the difference between these two postures. So in the wind tunnel example, you have a couple choices. You can choose to grab whatever you can, or you can choose to just stand there and grab nothing and leave the tunnel with zero. In the second example with the table, the choice is more based on like your relationship to the different objects in front of you, what pulls you in, what draws you in, what you like, what you prefer. And you get to choose between the items on the table based on your preference, not based on whatever you can get your hands on. We could add layers of complication to this illustration and be like, the person in the wind tunnel is grabbing as much money as they can to pay their rent and grocery bills, while the person standing in front of the table is like, I'm good on housing, I'm good on food, I'm just choosing based on what I want, not need. And that, of course, is a reality for so many working actors. It's not as much about want, it's about need. And I think for A-listers, it's a little bit more about want than need. You can, of course, argue that they need to pay security and lawyers, and of course they do. Like, I am not saying they do not, but, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need food, and security of housing and security of food is pretty high on the list. Anyway, I think I've been kind of seeing myself as no different from a process perspective and no different from a project choice position, no different than an A-lister, but I'm so different. I can't make decisions based on what I would prefer all the time. I have to make decisions based on my economic needs and making health insurance and that kind of stuff. The difference that I find valuable is that an A-lister interview, it comes from a place of they choose their projects. And for me, the project chooses me. I audition. If I'm super lucky, talented, prepared, I might get it. And we're told where to be, we're told when to be there, we're told what to do. And we do it, we show up with our whole selves, and we're just like, I will give as much of myself as I humanly can without passing out. But then it doesn't feel the same at inception as someone who reads several scripts and chooses the one that speaks the most to them. And I think it partially maybe is also that piece of like speaking to them, moving them, finding a script that they want to do that makes them feel something, that separates the kickoff points of these different processes. It's almost like you fall in love with someone and choose to marry them versus like you're told this is who you're going to marry, and you make the choice to open yourself up to falling in love with them over time. In both cases, love is possible. In both cases, the person might believe in marriage and want to be married, but the inception is different. The kickoff point is different, right, to that love affair. I think both are really interesting and valuable. I think there's so much to learn from being able to fall in love with a script, being able to fall in love with a process. And over the years, I think that is a skill that I've realized is probably one of the greatest things I can hone as a working actor, is learning to find the beautiful and learning to fall in love. While I may not always be able to choose a project from a lineup and say, this one, not that one, I can choose how I engage with it, and I can choose how I engage with artists and life and material, and choosing to find the beautiful and choosing to love something, I think, is a really valuable journey. And maybe it's a gift, honestly, then, to be a working actor and to get to choose to fall in love instead of to be choosy in what you fall in love with. I think sometimes I beat myself up for not being an actor that just loves every project the same. I think I'm not choosy in the sense that, like, I'll take anything that comes to me, but I don't fall as deeply in love with every project. Just like I don't fall as deeply in love with every person. And it feels like sometimes there are actors who, they just seem to want to do everything, and I don't. And sometimes it makes me feel like less than as an artist, that I don't want to do everything. But I think it's because I've also compared myself to A-listers who get to do a lot of good character work and crazy risky choices, and I'm like, oh man, I'm not as good an actor because I don't do that. When the reality is there's so many other factors at play in my life as someone who is trying to pay my bills, just trying to pay my bills. The process doesn't feel the same. And I think it's okay for the process not to feel the same. I think where we go as working actors can be just as rich and full as where A-listers go with their process, but the trajectory is different. And I think that's okay. Part of me thinks that it would be wonderful just to be able to choose what I fall in love with, but then another part of me thinks, well, there's a reason I'm here on this particular journey, and so the universe has chosen to teach me the lesson of learning to fall in love with what's in front of me, as opposed to choosing what is in front of me that I want to fall in love with. Same, but different, right? Hopefully this all made sense. It's really twisty in my brain, and I've written some thoughts down, and I've tried to untangle it, but it feels like such a niche interest, such this like random thought bubble that I've had in my head for so long that maybe isn't that important. But anyway, if it's interesting to you, thank you for watching, and keep going. We'll see what happens next. We're gonna turn on Do Not Disturb. Should have done that before.